Hello, welcome back to your Oracle DBA tutorial. In this tutorial, we are going to discuss about what is a Oracle database server. So let's consider a example of a human. So a human being consists of, so let's say this is a human. So this human name is a Scott. So basically Scott has two hands and pair of legs, pair of eyes and so on. Alright. So and then also Scott has a memory where he remembers something, where he thinks something, right? And then let's say this Scott is a genius person and he could able to write in the very first day when he came to this world. Okay, so this is just an assumption that this Scott is a genius and Scott could write in the very first second he come to this world. And what happens, their parents give Scott some notebooks to write. Okay, so then what Scott did, Scott started to write about what is happening in and around him, or what is happening to him, in a notebook like this. And once this notebook is completed, he goes to another notebook and so on. All right, so let's say the Scott, so this is what is about Scott's story. So what essentially Scott has, Scott has a memory, a small memory here where he can remember something. But what he does, because he forgets, so he used to write those things from his memory to the notebook. Okay, so this is what is about Scott. And then I'm going to draw a line here. So in this part I am talking about the human, and in this part I am talking about his diary or notebooks where he is going to write things about him. This analogy is exactly same if we consider Oracle database server. What essentially Oracle database server is consist of instance, and instance is basically something memory plus some background processes, or you just say some processes. Okay, so like the way that Scott has a hand, we have some background processes. So Scott writes using its hand, and we have a background processes called DB writer. So what DB writer does, it writes to database file. Okay, so we have instance and we have some files. So this is what is essentially is Oracle database server. And why I started with the human, because this is just analogous. Okay, so Scott is equivalent to instance, and this memory is equivalent to this memory this guy has. And then the way that this guy has a hand, eyes, ears and legs, similarly we have something called background processes. The way that this guy has some notebooks where he writes, we have files. Okay, and all this thing together called Oracle database server. Okay, so let's do a formal picture. So the formal picture is something like this. A Oracle database server is consist of processes, say P1, P2, P3, and there are plenty of them. We are going to discuss all these things in the later videos, like what each process does and what each process is responsible for. And then we have a memory structure. All right, and then the equivalent of that notebooks that we saw in our human example, we have something called database files. Okay, so this is called instance and this is called database. and this whole thing, the complete thing called Oracle DB or database server. Okay, so this is what a lot of people will ask, and a lot of people say that instance and database, they are same. This is completely wrong. So instance is the human, where database is the file. Okay, so you can just think about in that way. All right, so if my picture doesn't look good, so this is what is a abstract picture of Oracle DB server. So this is called your database files, and this is called, top part called instance. They work together. That means instance will attach to these files, and then they work in a very sophisticated way, in a very coordinated way, so that we can, so this is how it's going to, the database is going to work. So we are going to discuss all those things in our later videos. We have a series of videos from now where we are going to discuss in very detail about all these processes, memory structures, database files, and all these things. So here is another question that people will ask: how many database servers can be run on a machine? Okay, so the answer is it depends. So how big is your machine is? So let's say what I'm saying, that I have a machine, right? So in this machine I first install a Oracle database server. In that time I create say, instance 1 and data file 1. Okay, so this is a Oracle database server, and essentially if you do not tune anything, by default maybe this instance, a Oracle 11G server is going to take around 750 MB RAM. Okay, so if you install one of those Oracle server, it is going to contain it is going to take 750 MB RAM of this machine. Let's say assume this machine has 2 GB of memory. Then I can also have another instance I2 with data file 2. Okay, so it's so on, as long as I am running out of memory or I am running out of hard drive where these files are stored. Okay, so therefore there is no such answer, and there is no, it's not definitely one. You can have multiple database servers depending on how much memory, how much hard drive you have. Okay, so another thing is that, as you say, that we have instance and then we have files. Instance attached with the file, and they work in a coordinated way. This is one-to-one mapping, where each one instance is associated with one database file or one database. That is called single instance server. Single instance server. So if that is so, then we also have data file. So this is our file system, so our database files. We can have multiple instances I1 and I2. They can be attached to the same database files. In this case, this system is called Oracle Parallel Server, or they have a fancy name which is called RAC, or Real Application Cluster. Real Okay, so real application cluster. So you can ask again another question, that how many instances can have. It depends. Like I have seen there are 64 node rack. 64 node rack means that we have 64 instances. They are working with, they're attached to a single database file system. Okay, however, you might have another question, that can I have a database file system or two database file system that can be attached to one instance? The reverse of this thing, like instance, one instance we have multiple database file system. No, that is not possible. That is not possible, because in database we have a lot of properties like atomicity, consistency, and all this thing, and we cannot do, if we want to use multiple database files and we have only one instance to work with. Okay, so therefore this scenario never exists. We can have a one-to-one or we can have multiple instances with one database files. So this is all about what is Oracle Database Server. Again, I'm going to summarize. Oracle Database Server consists of two things. One is called instance and second one is called database files, or people call this is called database. Okay, and then this whole complete thing is called Oracle Database Server. And again, instance is two things like processes and memory structure. And if I just do a human analogy, this is like legs, hands, and so on. This is like the little memory that you have in your brain. And imagine this memory is small compared to what I can store in my notebooks. If I finish my if I completed one of my notebook, then I can buy another one and keep continue to write that. But if I finish my memory in the brain, I cannot add memory. Okay, so that means what I'm saying here is that this part is very costly, whereas you just can keep adding the disks and so on. So this is what is exactly what we are seeing as a human being, and I'm just giving an analogy that what is an Oracle Database Server. So hope you understand this. We are going to follow more videos on database architecture. Please make sure that you follow the DBA series on the according to the order.